Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters by Anfield Index. It is Monday, the 19th of January, and it's 2 days after not the happiest Anfield left with a point against Burnley. There's been a lot of chat, there's been a lot of noise, there's a big week ahead, and we are here to discuss every single part of it. I'm joined as ever by the renowned and respected David Lynch, and I think David will try and do this as systematically as possible because it's an emotional time for Liverpool fans. You can see that across the fan base. But if we go to the Burnley game, first of all, I know afterwards you tweeted this around the sort of performance and the result that put this out saying in this year's Liverpool down to a T to put on their best, most balanced performance up against a low block all season and still somehow find a way not to win the game. These days can happen, but it's so much harder to justify when you've dropped so many points already. And I want to kind of break this up bit by bit because the first half, Liverpool go in at the break 1-0 up. And they've missed a penalty. They've probably been the better team. And in fact, I at halftime was thinking 1-0, we probably should be more to the good, in all honesty.
Yeah, I thought they played well. To be honest, I think they play well for the majority of the game. That's kind of the theme of my analysis of this one, to be honest. And I know people really unhappy with the result, and rightly so. It's because against that level of opposition, you expect to play well and you expect to win, and Liverpool should have, and that is disappointing, particularly when it adds to all the disappointments they've had before. But if you just take this kind of, 75 minutes maybe of this 90 in isolation, I think it's one of the best that Liverpool have played all season, and on its own merits as a single football match is one of those where you kind of curse in Liverpool's luck, because I just think they create chances, they get in behind a low block. I mean, they start from the very third minute, don't they? Kirke's getting in behind, and that doesn't end in a shot, but it's a great opportunity, and they kind of continue in that vein and play really well in terms of unpicking Burnley. But of course, like you say, you get to half time and you think this is really, really good. Slot had spoken before the game about kind of wanting to get better at unpicking low blocks and kind of how much they'd worked on it in training, and he wanted to see that kind of click. And I thought, do you know what? We're seeing it. Fair play to him. This is actually happening. Liverpool getting the fullbacks in behind, changing the pace of the play, quickening it up at times. And I did see Slot on the sidelines constantly telling them, quicker, let's go. And they were responding to that. So I thought a lot of good. And like you say, you get to half time and you kind of like, wow, this is only going to go one way. Liverpool will get another early doors and they'll see how to win. And we'll have a lot of positives to discuss. But obviously, it doesn't quite play out like that. But first half in particular, but also I thought a lot of positives in the second half. But of course, Liverpool don't get the result over the line. And the fact is, they haven't played well in the majority of the game so far. So this was an aberration in that sense. And so you put that all together in the context, and it's a really poor result, and you completely understand why people are unhappy.
The thing is with the second half, though, because it kind of felt like there wasn't too much happening in the first sort of 10 minutes or so after the second half. And then Liverpool were okay. We were probably the shade in the better team. But for me, what was bugging me is you could see the Burnley goal coming. There was about a 5-minute period before then. Burnley were really getting a foothold in the game, as it were. And, I'm not saying they were peppering Alisson's goal by any means, but you could start to see it happening, just the change. And you were looking for maybe like make a sub, change something, because you could see it coming. And that was annoying. We just seemed to, I don't know what it was, whether I think the goal was about 65 minutes or so, but around the hour mark, you could see like whether the energy faded again, whatever it was. Burnley were growing into it, and we just didn't respond in any way.
Yeah, and I kind of thought, like, when it was happening, they're having a little bit of a spell, and you're thinking, this can happen in games. I know Burnley are Burnley, and they're not a great side, but, sometimes you do have to just kind of roll with the punches a little bit and just soak it up and whatever. But he just looked so uncomfortable in that time that it was just like when the goal came, it wasn't a surprise at all, as you say. And to be honest, it's the only 5-minute spell that Burnley have in the entire game, pretty much. And it's, that kind of intensity of being able to push, and to get punished for that is just so poor, really. I mean, all you've got to do in those moments, if you're going to accept that maybe even Burnley can have 5 minutes in a game because they are a Premier League team, is you've just got to make sure nothing happens and that you shut on. And I just thought Liverpool, there was a sloppiness to it in terms of their own passing and looking after the ball in possession to give Burnley some momentum. But then also on the defensive side of things is not seeing where the spare man is, not putting pressure on the ball. For me, Canate completely switches off. I mean, the fact that the guy gets down the outside of him, Edwards, I've defended Canate a lot of times this season, but that is really poor defending because you could see it coming as soon as Florentino Luis traps the ball. I looked at Canate and he's on his heels so badly, and you're like, oh, it's coming down your side, it's coming down your side. And then when he gets the ball and okay, he's getting a shot off and an excellent finish from there, you've got to give him credit. But, pressure on the ball was needed, and Canate needed to know and react quicker to the fact that that's the only space that the man wants to go into. So why are you not covering that off a bit better? So really, really poor goal to concede. And as you say, it kind of felt like it was coming in that period. And, it's Burnley's sole shot on target. So again, it comes back to the performance overall. If you're going to allow your opposition one shot on target, it's overall not a bad performance generally when you speak about it like that. But you can't let them score from it. And one thing I will say that is probably more damning of the performance is I've also seen that happen to kind of average Liverpool sides a lot down the years, where the one chance they give up in an entire game is a decent one, gets taken, and they can't take their own chances despite taking endless shots. So as much as I'm kind of defending the performance and the way it looked, and a lot of it I thought was positive, it's a very kind of Europa League level Liverpool team that does that, that concedes that goal and doesn't take their own chances. And I think that's, to be honest, that's the team we're watching at the moment, isn't it? They are of that level.
Yeah, it's hard. There's just been too much evidence for too long a period. And you talked about endless shots as well. I know people were sort of fixating this, and we'll talk about XG, which was over 3, 32 shots in total, 11 on target. But it is important to say when you're analysing this, the penalty is going to skew the XG as well. That's obviously going to take it up a bit. But a lot of the shots were almost outside the area, low value, as a lot of analysts will tell you, wasn't it? We were almost, Martin Dubravka was building a nice highlights reel on YouTube, I thought, because he was saving them from long range, and they look great. And on the other side, someone's going to chirp in with Cody Gakpo, I think, had a few turned off the line and that. But the XG's got to be analysed in its full context there.
Yeah, but to be fair, I would say I am less down on the XG element of this performance than some of the analysis I've seen. I maybe disagree with some people on that. I thought Liverpool created enough really good opportunities to win this match, and not just to win it 2-1, but to win it handily. You're right. Okay, you can take 0.75 off the XG tally for the penalty. But then to create kind of roughly 2.4-ish XG at home to Burnley is absolutely fine. I think anything in the kind of 3s on its own is, that's crazy territory, really. That's an awful lot of XG. So, to create the rest is a decent amount. And I think of Cody Gakpo off the line. I think of the one where Florian Wirtz dances through and he gets a shot away that's just stopped. McAllister blasts one over when he should do better. And of course, you can take the penalty out if you want, but it's a good chance. It's a good chance. It would have been nice if you just popped it in. So I think, like I say, I think all the criticisms of Slot are absolutely valid, but I almost think the ones around the attacking aspects of the play, they're probably not relevant to this game. The problem for him is that that was a rarity, really, what we saw at the weekend, and also, we don't think it's replicable, and also he didn't take the chances in the end anyway. So, the negatives are there, but for me, genuinely, I'm absolutely fine with the attacking performance, bar that final bit of finishing. I thought Liverpool, they got in behind, they created high quality opportunities against the low block, which they've completely failed to do all season. Like I say, I almost want to kind of pull this game out as a separate case to the rest of them, even though I still completely agree that the result itself really doesn't help Arne Slot. And I've criticised him enough this season, but I don't think there's any way you can kind of slice this up and try and say that was not bar finishing. As I admit, is quite an important part of it. But in terms of the build up and the getting into dangerous areas and the creating chances, I mean, for example, they don't even get any XG for the one in the 3rd minute from Kirkes when he puts the cross in because it gets cut out. So you don't even get a shot there. And there's a few moments like that. So, this attacking performance for me in terms of the underlying metrics is absolutely fine. But as I say, the pressure's on Slot because he doesn't get the results anyway. And this has not happened anywhere near enough this season. No. And also, it's against one of the worst teams in the league. And so I'm not that convinced that this is going to be the norm now.
No, I don't think anyone is. And he's not trying to be disrespectful to Burnley, but they are where they are in the table and the level they are. It is, something to be taken into account as well. In terms of the ultimate positive, I mean, I don't almost know what goes on. The worse the results get, the better Florian Wirtz seems to play almost. He's just literally, you could see again on Saturday, just a level above anyone else on the pitch.
Yeah, he's really coming into his own now, isn't he? And you look at the kind of numbers as well. His goal is brilliant, by the way. And I think I said on my post-match, I don't think he scores that goal 3 or 4 months ago. No. I did an analysis, I think it was in maybe the second or third international break of Wirtz and where he was up to. And I showed some numbers I thought were encouraging, showed some numbers I thought he maybe needed to improve on. And one of the things I said about improving on was that a lot of his shots were getting blocked. And I said, that's just for me about speed of the league. In the Bundesliga, you will get more time to get those shots away. I want to see more of those shots as he progresses, hitting the target, getting them away quicker. And like I say, I don't think he scores that goal 3 or 4 months ago because the speed with which he just trapped, bang, top corner, that would have got blocked a while ago. So he's adapting. We're seeing this in real time now that he's getting quicker, getting better. And then the other aspects of his performance I really, really loved as well was, a couple of the one where he sets up Gakpo, the one where he gets the shot away himself. He's holding players off. He's using that extra muscle that he's got now to really show his strength. And so, you don't have to be unbelievable kind of grok size to compete in this league. You just have to be good enough to be able to hold them, just strong enough in your core. You see with Salah, he's not the biggest guy, but he's so unbelievably strong in his football specific way. And so Wirtz is clearly benefiting from that as well. So, adds up to one of his best performances, really. Gets the goal, sets up chances that should have ended up in more, gets, I think, 4 shots, 3 chances created, looks really good in the dribbling, all aspects, dominating the build-up. And that's why I say, that's why there were positives in the attack, because I think Wirtz was at the heart of that. And you can just see how important I think he's going to be for this team going forward. There's not a lot to love about Liverpool at the moment, but I am really enjoying watching Florian Wirtz kind of bloom.
Yeah, he must be looking around and thinking, does anyone want to help me a little bit? Although the new signings, I thought, did well, as in Kerkez had another good game. I know, like you, I'm thinking, why doesn't he just leather it into the bottom corner when he breaks through early doors? It's that. But I thought he had a good game. Frimpong, again, lively on the right, made things happen. Ekitike does really well from the goal. In fact, it was probably a good day for the newer signings.
Yeah, and I think, kind of earlier in the season, I kind of thought one of the mitigating factors for Slot was that he'd been given these new signings, they were adapting. It's a very difficult process to go through, and that makes it harder for you. But it almost kind of makes it more damning for the manager now, doesn't it? That all these players are now starting to show how good they are, and yet he's not being able to create this cohesive unit that can regularly win games. So, I agree. I thought Kerkez fantastic again. We're seeing a bit more on the attacking side now. Love his kind of energy and the pace, the physicality he brings to the game as well, which, we know that obsession with PSG and wanting to be more like them. Well, he's very much in that kind of mold, isn't he? He can get up and down all day. He even wins headers. He's really, really great energy to him, but he's a quality footballer as well and very rarely beaten down his side. So, really, really enjoyed his performance. Ekitike, brilliant around the goal, brilliant generally in kind of his involvement. Would just like to see Liverpool give him more chances to shoot. And Frimpong again, proving how kind of important he is. So, his pace and versatility has been really key in this period. So they're all kind of bubbling up a bit now, which is good for Liverpool in the long term. I think it proves they didn't sign bad players at all. But like I say, for the manager, the fact that you've got these players now starting to play and he's still not kind of looking like a great team is, it's a bit of a problem for him.
Yeah, it's a bit of a worry when you're looking at the newer lads as the ones that are shining and talking about the existing players. I mean, we talked there about Canate. Yeah, not great. I've got to be honest, though, from watching this game, and when you're in the stadium, but even the highlights afterwards, you can look at it and say, well, Curtis Jones ends with an assist and we've only conceded a goal. But I know Dominic Szoboszlai missed a penalty, so I don't want to hammer him too much for that. But that midfield three, I mean, you mentioned Alexis McAllister misses a good chance as well. I wouldn't say it was a big chance by any means, but I just don't think the midfield, like the second half, they didn't really impress me.
I don't know. I feel like in terms of kind of for the majority of the game, really, I thought they were kind of doing the job, really, which was just to pen Burnley and completely stop any counter attacks, recycle the ball to the forwards. For me, they kind of did the job. I don't think you can put up kind of 3 expected goals up against kind of what 0 point nothing. I don't know. It was not a lot for Burnley.
Yeah.
Without generally putting together a good game and a good kind of performance in terms of doing what you need to do against opposition like that, which is to stop them getting counter attacks on you, stop them from set pieces, and just keep putting the attack on the front foot and give them the ability to create chances. And that, to be honest, I don't have any massive complaints about that. I mean, what you would have liked is maybe one of them to kind of find the cutting edge at the end. Maybe you do need your midfielders to chip in with goals in those situations when it's all kind of backs to the wall. And that kind of didn't happen. But I wasn't too against what they did. I just thought the biggest problem for me really was what happened around the substitutions. And I think they just started to make Liverpool worse, to be honest, because like I say, it was a really functional performance, really, in terms of the game plan is to just pen Burnley in massively, create chances and do that over and over and over and hope you score enough goals to win the game, and that they don't even get the chances to do that. And Liverpool managed to succeed in that. And yet when they were pushing at the end, they just needed to do more of the same. And yet the manager just starts throwing on forwards, as he is prone to doing at the moment. And I thought they completely lost the way on the basis of that. I thought it was a poor decision, really, because then Liverpool suddenly couldn't get the ball into the final third. And you're like, well, yeah, that's because the midfielders were doing that and they were stopping Burnley getting out. And then all of a sudden Burnley could get out a little bit more, albeit they didn't create much from it. So for me, I thought the manager made some poor decisions around that. And it's not the first time he's done that.
No, it is fun. I mean, Robbo was having a horror show. I think he runs it 20 yards backwards out of play at one stage as well. So that was...
I think with that sub, what he's trying to do is kind of think, well, Robertson's got a bit more quality in the cross than Kirkes does, which I think is fair. You know, I think Kirkes has got a little bit to go in terms of that, but it didn't work, as you said. I just thought Robertson came on was pretty dreadful. So that completely killed momentum. And yeah, the fact that they didn't really then have midfielders as much to work with was a problem for them. And yeah, it just made Liverpool worse. And I think the start of the season, that was really working for Liverpool, wasn't it? It was just throwing on forwards till, excuse me, they scored a goal. It's not worked for months now, and I just wish the manager would stop doing it. You know, you need to keep a functional team on. You know, Klopp was a very attacking manager, but he didn't used to just throw forwards on. He would always try and keep structure and just make sure you were doing good, smart football things to keep them penned in, and then the opportunity will come. Whereas you throw forwards on, and all of a sudden you've got Chiesa chasing back to try and stop a counter attack. You're struggling because you're just not doing smart football things. You're just trying to blam the ball into the box and hope it falls for you.
And Chiesa giving that foul away right at the end, you were like, "What are you doing?" So that summed up the substitutions as well. And one player that we've discussed a lot this season, Cody Gakpo. There's a real mixed review on this because I mean, anyone who thinks he's on corners needs muting straight away because his corners were horrendous. But he has a few off the line. But then again, like you see it in the stadium, a few, I think, attacks did break down with him, almost the standard Gakpo criticisms. What did you make of him on Saturday?
Yeah, I thought he didn't play well again. I don't think he's playing well at the moment, to be honest. I mean, you can kind of have two cleared off the line, but for me, that's... You've got to kind of finish it better, haven't you? I just think he's not confident or playing well at the moment. And again, it comes back to he played well last season. He's capable of more than this. So what can the manager do to work with him to get more out of him, to stop him showing the habits he is at the moment, to get him working better with his left back? How much work is being done on that? I'm not sure, but we aren't seeing the fruits of that in any way if it is being done. And you just think at the moment he's playing in such a way that you kind of don't really want him in the team because he's just not playing well enough at the moment. And I'm a big fan of Gakpo, and I think he's a really helpful person to have around in terms of the squad quality, but he's not having a great season. And it's kind of, I guess, some part on him, but also some part on the manager as well. Can you get a bit more out of him?
Yeah, maybe summing up Liverpool's troubles and the existing players at the moment, how it's going for him.